Hi all, welcome to this very special chat on BE Cafe. We have with us today Scott Brinker, widely considered the guru of gurus when it comes to all things martech. Scott is the VP of Platform Ecosystem at HubSpot. He's the editor of ChiefMartech.com, the popular blog that he started way back in 2008. And he's the author of Hacking Marketing that was published a few years ago. Scott has had quite the ringside view, tracking the phenomenal growth and evolution that martech has witnessed in recent years. So, well, hello, Scott. Thank you so much for joining us on BE Cafe today.
Yeah, no, thank you for that kind intro. Delighted to be here with you.
Right. I have to begin with the martech landscape, your martech landscape, so to speak, the very well-known super graphic that has, of course, charted the growth of this entire ecosystem from a few hundred vendors to over 10,000 of them today, with around probably 49 categories now, Scott. So has it been getting a bit complicated to categorize this ever expanding complex universe? How's it been for you?
It's definitely complicated. In fact, I say, the only thing that would be worse than the category process we have now is no categories at all. But one of the things that makes it challenging is, categories tend to be the ways, analysts and people who are trying to organize the entire industry think about it. But for a lot of the innovative companies that are working in this space, they don't necessarily think about it as the category, or at least they shouldn't. They tend to think about it of like, what's the job to be done? What are the customer problems they're solving? What are they helping marketers do? And sometimes those solutions are most effective when they cross multiple boundaries of, what we would think of as categories. And so it tends to make it very difficult to put a company in one category because in many ways, a lot of them have solutions that, connect across many.
Right, right. And I just want to take that forward. When you think about ownership, when you have organization ownership of martech, and we are kind of getting there, and in the countries that are very well sort of martech mature right now, when you're thinking about ownership of data versus content and experience in traditional businesses, it's IT that has always looked at data as well as relationship with technology vendors. Well, marketing would own that process of creating and delivering messages, the content, the experience. Now, I know we have come a long way from the time when the marketing team and the IT team did not interact with each other. Today, that collaboration is very crucial, of course. So and it's all about connecting marketing to the broader tech infrastructure, as you mentioned in earlier in many of your interviews. So that brings me to actually skill sets. Like once you have your systems in place, marketers today need to have the skills to apply them efficiently. So besides, let's say, software fluency and agility, because now everyone has to be agile. You are a marketer, not a marketer, you have to be agile. So besides that and software fluency and the likes, which is also crucial, what would you add to that list today?
The role of marketing, the mission of marketing, the responsibilities of marketing have expanded so much over this past decade, right? It's not like any of the earlier skills that were required in marketing, that insight into, customers, how do we craft great messaging, how do we organize, effective demand generation funnels, like all these things that were important 10 years ago. They're still important today, right. But now on top of that, we've layered all this additional responsibility for, okay, well, how do we manage all of the data, that's flowing in and out around customers and prospects? How do we get really good at the analytics and the data science for understanding, what patterns are happening with prospects and customers? How do we architect like all this machinery for, marketing automation and, all the systems of engagement? How do we create great experiences, on the web or mobile or, in social network environments? And so it's like all these different skills. It's, to be blunt, it's impossible for any one person to be great at all of this. It's just too much. And so the challenge for marketing teams has been very much to not have one person who can do it all, but to really assemble a team of diverse talents that are able to work together, and so I think this is why you typically see, in a marketing organization under the CMO, you'll have like a pillar that's really leading the operations and technology, and they understand that fantastic. You'll have a group that's really leading the deep analytics. You'll have a group that's continuing to do like the demand generation. You'll have a group that's like leading the brand. And if you can get that team to really synthesize together around a common strategy, that is the most effective way to be able to succeed in marketing in this environment.
Yeah. Uh, Now that brings me to brass tacks, rather stacks, as the case may be. There's enterprise architecture. There are point solutions. It is the never-ending dilemma that marketers probably face, and I'm sure there are still a lot of businesses who can't afford enterprise architecture. That's one of the reasons as well. But when it just comes to building stacks, you've always said it's necessary for marketing to look at capabilities in a more holistic way and connect the dots across the buying journey. And that one needs to, mainly, this is my favorite, one needs to look through the lens of the idea of designing for change. So in today's ecosystem, how would you top up that advice on building a stack?
Yeah, and again, this is one of those disclaimers that it's not a perfect world. This is still a very challenging environment because the technology keeps evolving very rapidly. But the big challenge marketers had, if you go back maybe 5 years ago, was all of these different point solutions. They might have been really great at what they did for their particular focus area, but it was very hard to integrate them together. Now, fast forward to where we are today, we still don't have this perfectly solved, but what you're seeing more and more is this gravitational pull towards major platforms, so like at the center of a stack, and, whether you're using Adobe or Oracle or Salesforce or HubSpot, but like having a system at the center of the stack that is then able to integrate with more of these specialized solutions, so that even if you're getting a product that is absolute best in class for a specific capability, it's not isolated. You're able to exchange data, you're able to start to create that coherent view of the customer, you're able to make sure that workflows across these different touch points are connected. And this is something that like HubSpot, Salesforce, Adobe, Oracle, like we've all, Microsoft, like we've all been investing a tremendous amount in opening up these APIs, in building these partner ecosystems, so that marketers don't have to worry about how they figure out connecting these different pieces, that really becomes the responsibility of the platform companies and the specialist martech apps. We should be able to do that, a lot of that work for you behind the scenes. And again, we're not quite at a place where it's as plug and play as putting apps on your phone, but aspirationally, right, that's where we want to get to as an industry.
And since you said something about getting that coherent view of the customer, and we've been hearing a lot of views on how customer centricity is now just so crucial. So if I want to just explore that a bit further, how pivotal is centralizing customer data today? Like, have businesses sort of been struggling also to get that 360-degree view and to achieve really what one would say true personalization at scale, something like that? To achieve that, has there been a bit of a struggle? I mean, I'm sure you've spoken to a lot of businesses on this.
Yeah, I mean, definitely. And I'd say even even today, this 360-degree view of the customer, it's still aspirational, right? I mean, because when you think about it, again, businesses have so many different touch points with customers. It's not just like the marketing and sales touch points. It's like what's happening in customer service. It's what's happening with their product usage. If you have a digital product or a digital service, like understanding their usage patterns and connecting that. It's the finance, like, where are they on, like, are they current in their account with us? You've got this whole stream of different things. And so this is the goal, is to get everything connected. And I think we're a lot more connected today than we were 5 years ago. But we've still got a ways to go. I do feel like one of the things that makes this easier is the recognition that the data doesn't have to live only in one system. It's not like, all these varieties of different systems, we just need to get all of the data just in this one place and nowhere else. Because again, people are using so many different apps depending on their role, their function in the business. They might have a different app they live in than a marketer or a salesperson does. So it's not about just having it in one place. It's increasingly about making sure that we can federate this data, which is to essentially just make sure that, okay, if finance is using this system and sales is using this system and marketing is using this other system, that's okay as long as we make sure the data across those systems is getting synchronized behind the scenes so that it is unified data, which is what we need as the goal for the organization overall. But at the same time, different departments who spend their working hours in their own specific app, they don't have to switch over to some other app. They can sort of get what they need where they live.
Over the years, of course, coming to some new shifts. So over the years, we've seen this big shift from, it's not a shift, but we've seen cloud being the big thing to mobile being another big thing. And now there's AI. And currently it's all about generative AI. The internet is full of views on, for instance, why ChatGPT is going to change absolutely everything. Generative AI continues to, of course, explode its image, text generation using DALL-E, Midjourney, Stable Diffusion. Did you foresee this, and how is it going to be? How will it be a big part of the second age of martech, so to speak? And how do you think it'll overall impact the ecosystem?
Yeah, it's not that I didn't think this might happen at some point, but to be honest, I'm surprised at how quickly it went from being sort of a science fair project, like, oh, that's kind of interesting, to like just over this past year, it hit an inflection point where the actual utility of things that are now being created and driven by this, it's workable. This is now like, production quality capabilities that are out there. And it's apparently only going to get much, much better, over this next 12 to 24 months. And so, yeah, I'm actually surprised by how good it is now and how quickly it's becoming great. And I do think it's going to have a huge impact on marketing, in particular in digital marketing. For like 25 years, pretty much ever since the internet, came about, we've been talking about personalization. Like we have this grand vision of like, oh, we can do personalized messages for, each of these different prospects and customers. But when you look at the actual implementation of personalization to date, it's still been relatively primitive. It's largely substitution. It's like, oh, well, we'll substitute this field, or we'll substitute this recommendation, or we'll make an if-then decision and send them on this branch versus that branch. I mean, don't get me wrong, we got value out of that, but it was still relatively like, it was only a few generations beyond mail merge. But now, some of these generative AI tools, we're in a position where it is possible for any given audience to understand like the data of what we know about them, what we can, surmise about them. We have all the data of, the possible ways we might be able to serve them. And then to feed that into these generative AI tools that are able to truly craft really personalized, content and messaging. I think that's going to be game changing. I think personalization in 2023 starting, and by 2024 to a really significant degree, is going to get really, really good for marketing.
Just to talk about 2023, what would you be excited about in terms of the categories that are going to come into the spotlight? And I know it's a long, it could take a day for you to answer that, but maybe a couple of your kind of favorites, if so to speak.
Yeah, I think there are 4 things that I'm really excited about in 2023. So one is we were just talking about generative AI and the ability to start to put that into production systems inside marketing. That's going to be really exciting. There's going to be a lot of creative use cases there. The second thing is, we were talking earlier about, like integrating the data for marketing with the rest of the company. And there's a lot of innovation happening there, particularly at the cloud data warehouse layer. Cloud data warehouses used to be this sort of like, oh, that's way off in the distance. Nobody directly works with that. Thanks to, innovation with things like Snowflake and AWS and Google Cloud, Azure, like these things are becoming live active systems that are dynamically influencing our apps and ops. And so lots of innovation there. We talked a bit about no code, and I think those tools keep getting better. They keep empowering more and more people across the marketing org to have more capabilities within their hands. And then the fourth thing that I'm really excited about is, and again, I'm biased. I'm the VP of Platform Ecosystem at HubSpot, so maybe no surprise that I will say ecosystems I think are actually an area for great innovation. And I don't mean just ecosystems like martech company ecosystems. I think more and more businesses are realizing that in this digital world, everything, our customers are adjacent to so many different other companies who like help serve them in collaboration with how customers use our products and services. And the opportunities are now opening up for these adjacent companies, product and service companies, to collaborate better on how they serve the customer mutually, to everyone's benefit. And so there's a whole bunch of exciting ecosystem technology that has really started to mature over these past couple years. And at the very time that, everyone's talking about how third-party cookies and third-party data is, has an uncertain future, it's recognizing that this quote unquote second party data that we can actually share in collaboration with a broader and broader network of partners and ecosystem of partners is going to allow us to mutually like serve customers, reach customers much more effectively. So I think we're going to see a lot of innovation there in 2023 too.
That's great to know. My last question for today, and it's a more zoomed out one, really. Obviously, you've had this ringside view of martech's dramatic growth. But I think today there are these incredibly high expectations, really, from it, which perhaps also set it up for some really quick criticisms on its capabilities. It's kind of expected to automatically solve some really complex problems. So, do you want to set that expectation right for us?
Sure. So I will borrow an answer that this fellow Avanish Kaushik, who years ago, decades ago now, actually was, one of the pioneers of digital analytics and helping people understand like website analytics. And he would always say, at every event I saw him speak, it's 10% about the technology and 90% about the people, the process, the strategy. And I think that insight is as true today as it ever was. I mean, the technology is really exciting, but in order to harness these capabilities and productively put them into use, we need to train and enable and empower our teams to take advantage of them. We need to adapt the way our organizations are structured to be able to be more efficient in the process and flows we do. We need to rethink our strategies, like how do we think about a more holistic go-to-market approach, given these capabilities we have for, finding, engaging, and delighting customers. And if you fail to put enough emphasis on those things, if you fail to put enough investment in that, if you're just sort of relying on the technology to, I love as you say it, auto-magically, do all this for you, it can't, So if you aren't doing like 90% of your investment in people, process, and strategy, you should not have the expectation that the technology is somehow going to miraculously save you.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a very good note to end this on. Thank you again so much for joining us today.
Thank you so much for having me. Have a great day.